Hello and welcome to Ask a Citytech Grad. Today we're talking with the fabulous Fidel Frias, one of
Hello.
my favorite students of all time, of course.
Pleasure.
Quite. So, why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Well, my name is Fidel, like you heard about
Yes.
a couple seconds ago.
Yep.
I originally graduated from Citytech back in 2011.
Whoa. Okay.
So I was a young student, really looking to focus on advertising once I got out. But then notice pretty much is what you apply and what's available. Sometimes when it comes to the job market, and so I went to the lane of publications. So right out of school, I was a intern for Vibe magazine, really known cool hip hop magazine.
Were,
They
were,
no longer
were you an intern while you were at Citytech at Vibe?
so when I had you for portfolio, I would in the morning work at Vibe, go to your class, and then from your class go back to Vibe to finish off my day.
Oh, wow.
That was
I remember you were late quite a lot, but I understood.
And then from there, I was kind of upset because I'm like, I need money, I'm broke. So they finally hired me as a freelance designer.
Oh, brilliant.
So I was freelancing there for a couple of months, and then they finally gave me a job offer, and I took it. I was a marketing designer there. Then from there, I started noticing a lot of people from the company, leaving. I call it the company wave. I think sometimes in fields, you notice that a lot of your coworkers start leaving for better opportunities. So I started noticing that, and I was like, "Whoa, I think it's my time to bounce." So then from there, I went to work at Hearst Magazines. Right there, I was a senior designer there for a couple of years.
Just mention some of the publications that Hearst does.
Oh, I worked a lot. Anything from Esquire to Cosmo, Marie Claire, House Beautiful, Veranda.
So that's a big.
Mechanics.
That's a big.
Big portfolio. Over 21 magazines.
Yes. No.
And
they have the most amazing building in Midtown Manhattan as well.
Yeah, you walk in and it's like waterfalls instantly. Like you walk in, it's like waterfalls coming out. It's going up the escalators. So it's an amazing building right at Columbus Circle. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're bored, you can literally just walk in and check it out.
Yep.
All right. But then from Hearst, I started doing some freelance here and there, and told myself I needed to learn a little bit more, so I went into grad school. I recently just graduated this past May. I entered it's called a BIG program, so it's Branding Integrated Communications program. So they teach a lot about insights, teach a lot about the ins and outs of strategy, the ins and outs of thinking conceptually, thinking about a brand and what a brand stands for. Anything from making sure what the brand values are and how it relates to the consumer, anything from brand loyalty to figuring out if you want to come back and purchase the brand or not, the ins and outs of how to start a fully blown out 360 integrated campaign. And one thing I really learned about is that most of these big campaigns really start from a really solid insight. And you got to make sure that this insight really makes you go, "Ooh, wow, I never thought of that before." Or it makes you really think about a certain situation. So I noticed that that's really the core of starting any campaign and making it kind of flesh out through all different channels. For example, certain brands don't need to have social, maybe strictly print. Or some brands don't even need to get away from print and just do only online. You necessarily don't need to do Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for the most part. Sometimes a campaign could run solely on Snapchat and be amazing, or solely on Insta stories and be amazing. So it's really figuring out what type of medium works best.
So you describe the difference between if you're working at like an advertising agency or working in the marketing department of a magazine. So what would the difference be?
So you're I think more on the brand side. You're focused literally on what they want and what the RFP is about, and figuring out what their need is.
And tell us what the RP is.
The RFP, sorry.
RFP, yes.
Yeah. So it's like pretty much a small little proposal that the brand comes in. For example, let's say I'm Bear, and I'm trying to target this headaches. So Bear's mostly for headaches. And I want to target young kids that are starting school and we want to create a campaign for them using our brand. So we will go into our portfolio and we'll check out what products we have in order to, work with Bear and figure out if our campaign will work. So pretty much we'll have to create a deck. The deck will then go to the salespeople. The salespeople will then go to Bear and pitch it to them to see if we can get the business. And then that's how pretty much the cycle goes for each brand.
So do the companies come to you at all, or do you just approach the companies?
We approach the companies. Well, the companies will email one of the sales reps like, hey, we have this RFP, we have this thing. We'll then create a brand brief relative to that.
So there's a bit of back
and
forth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll sit down, brainstorm, blah, blah. But I think it's very different from ad agencies. I think where ad agency is much bigger. With us, it's just how can our products help you versus an ad agency. How can you take our brand, make it bigger?
Right. Okay. So, how do you feel about your graduate school experience? Is that something you recommend? Was it a good idea?
I recommend it if you have that itch to keep learning. And I always tell people when they ask me, so how was school? How do you feel about it? And I tell people, it depends on you. And it's not something you're forced to do, but it's something that you really have to really think about because you're balancing two things. You say you have a full-time job, you're balancing a full-time job, and at night you gotta go to grad school. Most classes last 3 hours, from 6 to 9.
Yeah.
And then you gotta meet, and then there's another thing called group work, which is a whole nother monster. You have to be able to work well with others, figure out time management. When can you see them? When can you do your work? When can you be social? If you live in New York, you want to be social. You want to go out. You want to experience things. But then you have to also learn how to balance all those things. And I believe I had a great experience in those 2 years. But again, it really depends on you. And if you have that urgency, like that urge to keep learning, if not, then coast, keep looking, keep working, connect. But if you have that itch to learn, then I recommend it.
So you went to school with some other Citytech grads, right?
Yep. I went to school with Casey Charles. She's also Citytech grad. She's awesome. And that's it. And currently there are others still in the program. I think Amira. Amira, right? I think that's her name.
Amira, yes.
Yes, Amira, yes.
Yeah.
So she's there. I think she's about to be her second year now. And she's killing over there as well.
Yep.
So Citytech is really representing in our program.
Were you there with Ben Miftari?
Yes. So Ben graduated a year ahead of me.
Right, okay.
So yeah, Ben was, I think, the first Citytech person to enter that program. So kind of like Ben led the way and so on and so on. So our school each year has at least one person from Citytech, which is nice to see.
They're very good to see. And just remind us which school it is that you were doing your master's?
It is Branding and Integrated Communications at City College.
City College.
It's a community school, yep.
And that campus is where?
It's on J Street. No, not on J Street. That's Citytech. You see how much I'm in Citytech? It's in Harlem. It's on 145th. It's on Convent Avenue.
Right.
So a bunch of trains go there. The one goes there. The A, B, C, D. So getting there is pretty simple. Right. And the campus is pretty nice.
Good. Yes. That's always helpful when it's a nice campus. Citytech could have a slightly nice one. Anyway, I won't.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother story.
No, Citytech has that great new building.
No, now they're gonna build a new building.
I know, right?
Right? Where's it located? It's like across the street or something.
Yes, it's next to the building. It's replacing the building that had the gym in it.
The building that had the gym in it across the street. Yeah. I
think it's like that whole block. But honestly, I haven't seen it in the flesh just because I'm over here.
Yeah, same here. I should walk by one day. Who knows?
Okay, so career highlights.
Career highlights. Let's see. What do you mean? Like, what have I done successfully?
Like a piece of work or two that you were really proud of.
Like work-wise?
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, I still haven't found that thing that I'm like, wow, this was amazing. This is the best thing I've ever done. I think I'm like this. I set my bar really high for myself. I think I'm mostly like, if I see that this work is really thought out, this work is really solid, because I believe anything we do, we can always make better.
Yeah.
For like for one, you could be like for 2 years ago, you could have a whole project you did for class. You thought it was great. You got an A+, and you put it on your portfolio, and then you noticed a couple of months later or a year later, you notice, there's certain things that could be improved. And that's the same thing at work. I have certain highlights like, yeah, this was great. Yep. But then a few months later, I'm like, it was okay. Could be improved.
You get better. You get better, and your eye gets better. It's like, I should have done this. I should have done that. Mm-hmm. Totally get that.
So, no achievements yet. I think I have good stuff. But again, I'm like this. It could always be improved.
Well, I have to say, it seems like your career is on an upward trajectory, and that you're actually doing some really interesting stuff.
Oh, thanks.
No, that's good. So, for people who are about to graduate and are preparing their portfolio, what is your advice?
My advice is look it over again and again and again. And I know sometimes it can get a little tedious and a little frustrating because you want to have the best book, and when you're getting out of college, it's kind of scary because you're thinking about, am I going to get a job? I want to find a job. But again, I always recommend put the work that you really love to explain, really love to present, because it then shows how enthusiastic you are about the work versus work you don't really had fun doing.
Sure.
I recommend to put projects that you love, that you can easily explain, that tells a story, tells a consumer journey. For example, let's pick a product. These pairs of sunglasses. These were your favorite sunglasses growing up as a child. It has no brand, but you give it a brand. We call it New Shades. And then how the new shades affect you. Like, you remember the days you went to the park, or you remember the days you went to the beach with your family wearing those sunglasses. And so, like, tell a story to me versus like, well, this was print, and then we did some social, and then we did some. If you tell me a good story, a good background in a lot of your projects, it creates a better presentation when you're explaining it to someone.
Sure. What can you say about how people present their portfolios these days? Because I've heard, like, some people like to get PDFs emailed to them, as opposed to like going through a website that sometimes the websites can be a little clunky.
Yeah.
I know there are some art directors out there that like printed out portfolios, but I don't really know how prevalent that is at the moment. What do you see when people are coming into your office? What kind of stuff turns up?
So what turns up is normally a portfolio link. PDFs, they're good too, but it's good for like a quick kind of overview if you know any design aesthetics. Like if your art direction is good, your type's good, your kerning, anything, imagery. It just gives you a quick recap of your work.
Yeah.
I believe your online portfolio is what makes it or break it sometimes, and it needs to be easy to get into. It's going to be easily accessible. It is a lot of UI experience too you need to put into it. Not just the work, it's the UI and the UX.
Yeah.
Making sure it's easy for me to click to the next project. Making sure that the images are high res enough, but don't take too long to load. There's a lot that goes into it. Can I read your headlines? Can I read your copy? Do you have video? Is it loading quickly? All these questions go in. So I believe I think more of the online presence for me. I've noticed in portfolios, but if you're going in for an interview, it would be nice to have it printed out as a PDF. So you kind of could go over it, explain things, write on it. So yeah, that's the suggestion I would give.
Okay. So you just said print it out. Because PDF is an electronic document. You think an actual printed out pages portfolio? Or are you saying like a PDF on an iPad or something?
If you're applying for a job online, have an online portfolio.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah. I mean, everybody needs a website no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going in for an interview, you got the interview going in, it would be nice to have it printed and also an online version. You never know. You go in, the Wi-Fi's not working or whatnot. Yeah. But I like to have... It would be nice to see you print it out because it shows a little bit more effort.
Yeah.
And you can easily go through things, and it's easier to read. You don't got to worry about things loading when it comes to
UI, UX. Yeah.
Yeah, and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Yes. Well, that's extremely useful, and thank you very much for that. Because I'm doing an online class, I don't get to invite you into my classroom to give a speech to everybody, but this is really nice because now everybody can see you online.
Of course, yeah, they can. That's great.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I will see you very soon.
Do so. Thanks.